Kenny Ball game. Ken
Yeah.
Rosenthal joining
Kenny.
us day before opening day. Ken, as you can tell, a lot of money talk going on at the moment, which actually was kicked off by the newest rich man in Major League Baseball, Andres Gimenez. So good afternoon to you. And what did you think of the Gimenez deal? These guys were breaking down, hey, it's over $100 million. He's getting himself rich. What did you think about it? Like, is there any chance on the other side that this ends up being a massive bargain for Cleveland?
Oh, there's a good chance of that, and that's why Cleveland did it. The Guardians do not do these deals unless there's a chance of them achieving what they call in baseball now surplus value, getting more for the dollar than they're actually paying. And that's the entire point behind doing this deal. And they're talking to other players on their team as well about these kinds of contracts. So for Jimenez, I always look at this if it was my own son. What is the line where I say, okay, wait to free agency, it's not enough, or just take the money? $100 million, guys, is awfully difficult for any player, any human being to turn out. Different for each individual person, of course, but that's a big number. And I know there are people on the player side, probably people with the union, other agents who would say, man, he sold himself short. He needed to wait. This guy is going to be a superstar in our game. And I believe that actually Andres Gimenez is that kind of player. He is outstanding. But in his mind, I have a chance here. There is that 1%, 2% chance I suffer a major, major injury, even though players can buy insurance. They feel this is the best way to get their families long-term security, and that's how they go about it. And it's hard to fault them, but I'm sure there are people, again, who are critical who will say, listen, this is selling himself short, selling the player short ultimately because one deal, of course, is used as a benchmark for another. That's how the game works.
Ken, for me, I think that's a boatload of money. And we always talk about this when we talk. Like, listen, if somebody's going to offer you that much money, and the fans are going to say the same thing, like, listen, it's $106 million. Like, you guys are crazy. You got to make all this. But yeah, there is more money to make. But now he's set for life. His kids' kids are set for life. It's a very hard thing to do. But now people are always like, in baseball, like, you're going to ruin it for the other guy that's, trying to make the money and put a standard at where it's supposed to be. Explain that to some people how hard it is for players and how hard it is, to figure out what exactly that money price is, but when to take it, when not to take it. Like there's a big, with agents and all this stuff. Like, explain that.
I think one thing that needs to be said, Todd, is every person's circumstance is different. So some players grow up extremely poor, especially players from Latin American countries, and their perspective on this is different than a kid who grew up middle class in New Jersey, for example, right? So that's part of it. There also are pressures, as you said, from the agents and from the union to get the most money possible. That's the way the union was built, frankly, and it's been very successful doing that. Maybe the most successful union in the history of our country, if you want to look at pure money. So there are all these tugs and different things pulling at players, and yet at the same time, there's a humanity to this too, or a human element, I should say. It's a lot of money, and chances are you might not get that money in 3 years or 4 years. Now, chances are you might do even better. And you mentioned Tim Anderson before. Tim Anderson, if we hooked him up to a monitor and put him on a truth serum situation, I'm sure he'd say, I'm not all that happy with my contract, right? Ronald Acuna Jr., he signed for $100 million, but my goodness, Ronald Acuna Jr., if he had gone year to year through arbitration, then hit free agency, who knows what he might have made. Now, he even had a bad injury. He had a horrible injury, and he still would have come out all right. So there are two sides of it. It's not always as black and white as it might appear to the average fan. Yet at the same time, I'll repeat what I said before. I go back to what I would think about with my own son, and it would be difficult for me to say, hey, just walk away from 100. That would be hard. You could say, well, Ken, where does that end? It would be difficult to walk away from 50. It would be difficult to walk away from 10. But there is a line for each person, for each player, and that's what each player must go through with his agent and in his own head, how to kind of figure out what's best for him.
Is there a line for the teams? Like, is there, you talk with ownership, you talk with front office. Is there a line for teams where they're like, we're the White Sox, we're never going to spend more than $75 million. We're the Pirates, we're never spending more than $10 million a year. Like, have you talked with teams or ownership or front office that's like, we're cut right here. We can't go any farther than this, no matter who it is.
Eric, there absolutely are those lines, and we're seeing it play out right now with the Pirates and Brian Reynolds. Now, maybe they get that done. It's possible, and certainly with opening day coming, it's today or tomorrow where probably this gets done or doesn't. But there are certain areas where teams are not willing to go. And actually, we have a story in The Athletic today. It's really good about the shortstop class, this last one. It's a $1 billion class, essentially, just short of $1 billion. Correa obviously could take it over $1 billion if his options are exercised down the line. And one of the points in this story is that the sizes of these contracts are going to create problems down the line for small market teams like the Royals, for example, with Bobby Witt. How the heck are the Royals going to keep Bobby Witt now? Now, this is a systemic problem within baseball, and it's been going on forever. This has been something in the 1950s. The Yankees would take all the players from the Kansas City Royals at that time. It weren't the Royals, they were the A's. So I don't know how you solve it, and that's one of the great problems in our game today. How do you make that disparity somewhat more reasonable? But that's where we are. And yes, to answer your question again, Eric, there are absolutely lines. And even in Cleveland's case, they would go to this level for Andres Gimenez, but I'm sure they wouldn't go to another level, right? This was where they landed. So it's something that informs our game all the time. The money, the disparities, and all the different things that go on. And Rob Manfred in recent weeks has mentioned this and even said it last night in a forum with the New York Post's John Heyman and Joel Sherman. He said, I don't have a problem with Steve Cohen doing what he's doing. He's playing within the rules. What he's concerned about as commissioner is the fact that because certain teams are spending here, then other teams can't be even in the competitive game. And that's a problem for baseball. It's been a problem for a long time.
Well, it's never going to go away, Ken, unless the salary cap, which the union, I don't believe, will ever allow. Who's next for Cleveland? Kwan, Rosario, they have got a lot of guys on the books here that are young. So who would be next? Rosario's kind of been rumored. I would like to see Kwan, a Naylor. Who would be next for Cleveland to lock up like this?
They've talked to a lot of guys this spring, AJ. It was actually detailed yesterday by our writer, Zach Meisel. I believe he had 6 names, 6 players that they had talked to. Some of the discussions went further than others. Kwan was one. Rosario is another, though I can't see them keeping Rosario. He's entering his free agent year, I believe, and they have shortstops lined up behind them. And Jimenez is a shortstop. He plays second base for Cleveland, but he certainly can play shortstop. He did that in the WBC. There are also guys like Tristan McKenzie. Now, he's currently out with an injury. Trevor Stephan, a reliever that they've talked to. So I would expect that we're going to see at least one more from Cleveland, perhaps in the next day or two. And down the line, if they can get guys on their terms, at their price, they'll do this. They want to do this. They want to keep their players like any team wants to keep their players. The question is, how much does it cost?
Well, if Rosario walks from Cleveland and Gimenez goes to shortstop, that makes this deal even more club-friendly, right? Shortstops usually get hired,
yes,
paid higher. Shortstops usually get paid higher than second baseman.
No question. And I'm not saying they're going to do that. Gimenez won a Gold Glove at second base last year. He's a pretty darn good second baseman. And they have, like I said, guys lined up behind him. Arias is one. But at the same time, yes, they have all this flexibility. And you're right. The deal looks even better if Gimenez goes to shortstop.
Ken, let's get to some storylines and some predictions. We'll start with the article that you posted this morning. Completely unserious opening day predictions for every MLB team in 2023, presented in reverse order of predicted finish, which I absolutely adored the article for all of the shots taken all over the place and the fun that was had. I just encourage reading it. I'll just go over a few. Like one that hit home for me was Corbin Burns because he's going to be on the show all year long. He's one of our regulars. We had him talking arbitration, and your line was 12-0 start. Then he gets traded to LA, and he'll be at the forefront of the Brewers missing the postseason again. And if you followed the arbitration story, that is what the Brewers said last year about Corbin. So anyway, how much fun did you have putting this together? And did you have a favorite line or two that you'd like to pick out? This was your comedy article, I would say, right? One of your top comedy articles that you put together each year.
Actually, Scott, it's a lot of fun, but I will say this, it's one of the most difficult things to write that I do all year. It's not your standard article. And the problem with writing something like this is you're taking 30 teams. Some of the jokes will land, some will not, and I try to vet them as much as possible with our other writers, and I have an editor that I go to, and she will tell me every year, not this one, that one's offensive, no, and we try to get to the right place. But it is a lot of fun, and it actually allows me to have some fun with people and some pointed criticisms in a way, but at the same time, inform people as well. For instance, in the Blue Jays one, I'm not sure fans are aware, the average fan is aware outside of Toronto, that they have an entirely new outfield dimension this year. They changed the dimensions, they changed the sizes of the walls, etc. And the other thing I don't know that fans were aware of, because I was not aware of this until I did some games at Chase Field during the WBC, their roof is a problem. They can't really open it or close it with fans in the stands because there are cables that I guess are not fully functional, or at least they're worried about the integrity of these cables and they don't want something happening with the roof while fans are in the stands. So you get to some of these things in the article too, and you can point out some things, but it's just a fun exercise and it's a goof. I'm not pretending to be anything close to serious. One of my favorite ones, I guess, was the Mets one where I said that Cohen buys the Dominican Republic, like the entire country of the Dominican Republic, and then the small market owners get mad, so he buys Venezuela in response. And that's the kind of the spirit of what we're talking about here. It's not serious, and I'm sure people will get offended regardless because people always get offended by everything, but it's just a fun kind of thing. I'll have a more serious storylines article tomorrow.
Can I add 2 to your list? Do you mind? Or is that offensive?
Go, please. No. Welcome.
Okay, so this is my prediction for opening day. AJ Pierzynski is going to throw a strike on opening day, but rip off his White Sox jersey to reveal a Cubs jersey on underneath.
Oh.
And Todd Frazier is going to be warming up in the cage underneath, and he's going to be like, yo, let me get a bat. And they're going to see him hit off the tee and get a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, and Todd never comes back on the show again this year.
There we go. I'll take that.
Well,
one of those things
both
Ken
are
knows
cool.
could happen. One of them he knows would never happen.
That's
well,
awesome. I like
AJ,
it.
the only
I like
thing
it.
about yours would be the ultimate heel move. It would kind of be in character with some of the other stuff you've done, but you would never do it. Now, Todd, that's a cool one too. And guys, I don't know if you saw the other night, but one of my favorite moments already of this season was Romo's farewell in San Francisco. That was so well done, and he is such a unique character in the game. He's had such a great career, such a great story, really, from where he came from, kind of a nothing prospect. That was really cool. So maybe Frazier has that in him, man. I don't know.
Ken, keeping on
One
this
and a half
subject,
mil, though. $1.5 mill's not going to do it.
No.
Todd, let me be your agent on that one. 1.5 mil on that.
Agreed.
Ken, on this article in The Athletic where you posted it, you're talking about Frazier coming out of retirement. Some of the highlights for me, I want to start Vegas to the A's. That's probably going to happen. So I don't know if that was more of a
Yeah, but the way he wrote it,
yeah,
was
that's
good.
more of a like, this is going to come down. So I'm just going to put it out there. And
Yeah, but you've got to
big
give
prediction.
context. He said the owner, John Fisher, is buying a $10 million home in Vegas.
Yes,
Planted in Vegas.
planted in Vegas.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's not true. That's not. Now, there's a whole one thing, AJ. Before you get going more, I try to put like a kernel of truth in all of these. That's kind of how I try to do it. So people think, that's kind of weird, but it's something to that.
Well, yeah, but that's going to happen probably more than likely that they're going to move to Vegas. The Rockies one's about the fans protesting they can't drink enough. I was thinking maybe a different something they were protesting they couldn't get enough of.
Yeah, well, maybe.
In
Yeah,
Denver.
I could have done that.
Bochy and the Rangers. He wants all the ex-Giants to come back. Bumgarner, Kane, Romo come out. That was pretty funny because after DeGrom, hopefully he doesn't get hurt if he stays healthy, but he does. He's going to be asking for some people. Ron Washington, talking about Frazier coming out, and you wrote, let me play MF in shortstop. I'll just play it. If you've ever been in a Ron Washington meeting when he was the manager of the Rangers, the way he would say it, MF was every other word. This MF and MF and MF and MF. I mean, the whole speech for 30 minutes.
He'd be perfect on this
It
show.
would be amazing. And then the Houston Astros is relevant because we had Evan Drellick on here, and I'm reading the book right now. Jim Crank concedes that winning doesn't fix everything and has Drellick throw out the first pitch at the World Series. I don't think Evan Drellick's allowed in Houston after reading the first few chapters that I've already read.
Well, that one was kind of my personal favorite in some ways because I'm tight with Evan. We worked on the Astros scandal story together, and his book is great. And I encourage people to read it because it's not just about the cheating. It's about the whole culture that led to a point where that team was in a place where they thought, okay, this was okay. And it was that more than anything that made that book so compelling to me. It was about how the Astros got from A to B, how it was possible for them to get to A to B, from A to B, just based on the way the culture of the organization had evolved. And I recommend it to everyone. And I don't think Jim Crane is going to invite Evan to throw out the first pitch of the 2023 World Series, but I'd be there for it, put it that way.
Hey, Ken, let's get back to a little more serious note, a little more baseball. We've been talking about predictions.
Yep.
I don't know if you let the cat out of the bag about your predictions yet, but I would love to hear anything that you can let us know, like your predictions, World Series prediction, maybe a division winner. What do you think on that? I would love to know who you think is going to be in the World Series, who you think is going to win the World Series, if you're allowed to do that.
I'm allowed to do it, but I will warn everyone listening, my predictions, regular season, postseason, awards, every year, they suck. My predictions are always wrong. I mean, I'm the worst at this. And actually, one of the reasons I started writing the funny column was because I'm like, they're making me write predictions. I might as well just have some fun with it. So
Exactly.
I have the Astros over the Braves, but I have no idea what's going to happen. And actually, as I say in this article, you tell me who's going to get hurt, and you tell me who's going to get traded, and maybe I might have an idea who's going to win the World Series. But really, the beauty of our sport is that there's no way to know. And things will happen that we can't anticipate. We can't anticipate even which players will get traded. A year ago at this time, if I had told you Juan Soto's getting traded to the Padres in July, you would have said you're nuts. No one would have thought that. No one would have thought the Nationals were going to offer him $440 million for 15 years, which is what triggered the whole thing. So I don't need to tell you guys, you know it better than anyone because you played the game, but this game is just impossible to predict. Now, do we know the A's and the Reds are not going to meet in the World Series? I think we know that. But can I tell you the Mets, Braves, Phillies winner? No, I can't tell you that. Dodgers, Padres. Can't even tell you that. AL East, Blue Jays, Rays, Yankees, Orioles. Who knows? So many things will happen, and that's the beauty of it. That's why I love the start of every season because the 30 soap operas are all about to unfold right in front of our very eyes.
Who's your MVP? Give me your MVP if you had to choose one now. Everybody healthy. Who would be your MVP?
Certainly Ohtani in the American League. And you could argue he should have won it last year. That's a debate for another time. And who knows? That's a personal preference thing. And I see Acuna coming out of it and having a big year. I don't know if he'll win MVP, but Freeman is gone. Swanson's gone. They have Olsen, of course. They traded for Murphy, but Acuna really is the centerpiece of that club. He's healthy again, fully healthy, back from that knee injury, and I just expect he's going to do big things. So I would guess he'd be my choice in the National League.
Ken, you and I have argued about the MVP on television before, and you can't be on a losing team and be the MVP for me. So we're not going to get into that. We'll get into it another time. What? you know everything about Major League Baseball, a lot of it. You can't make predictions, you said that, but you know a lot of the rules and what happens. And with the new schedule, explain this to me and the fans out there. You're doing the Yankees-Giants game on Saturday, is that correct? Giants at Yankees?
Yes.
And they have Friday
Yes.
off? They play Thursday, have Friday off, play Saturday?
Yes.
I'm doing the Phillies at the Rangers on Saturday. They play Thursday, have Friday off, play Saturday. Why in the world does Major League Baseball have a team that plays indoors have Friday off after they have opening day on Thursday? Why don't they just play? Now, I'm happy because we're going to get Wheeler and Evaldi as a pitching matchup. But why in the world do they do that? They have these games where domes in warm cities, they give them a day off after you start. Why not just let's go?
I get it, AJ. I get what you're saying. And the entire reason to have an off day after opening day is in case of inclement weather and a postponement. When you have a dome stadium, that's not a problem. So I'm not sure the logic for that. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they do it for pretty much every team and they figure it's just more consistent that way. I don't know. But that is a very, very legitimate question.
I just don't.
Power outages, just in case.
The thing
never
is,
know.
as a player, and I think Todd and Eric will back me up, once you get the season started, you're ready to go.
Of course.
Let's go. We don't need the day off right away.
Yeah.
I understand the day off because it happened to us a few times where it's too cold in Chicago or somewhere we got rained out, snowed out, whatever, and you needed the next day. But they're building these games in Arizona and Rangers and some of these different places. Why not let them play 4 games in a row or 3 games in a row? It just does. To me, it's just bad scheduling, but I don't know.
I have no idea. That sounds like.
I mean, I am interested
yeah.
to see how the more balanced schedule plays out. That's going to be really an interesting aspect of this season. We've talked a lot about the rules, of course, but the fact that division opponents are going to play each other 13 times, down from 19, that's a huge change in the game and a huge boost for teams, for instance, like the Rays, who are playing in a very difficult division. They don't have to play their division opponents as often. The other part of that, of course, is that every team will play every other. We have not seen that ever in this sport. And that's going to be a refreshing thing, too. The season, because of all this newness, really is more intriguing than most. And I can't wait to see how the clock plays out. I can't wait to see how the 2 disengagement rule plays out. All of these things are going to be fascinating. They're going to be bumps along the way, I'm quite sure. But it seems to me the idea, certainly, is to get the game to a better place. And I expect that it will get to a better place, and that's going to be great.
Ken, you won't be able to get your hits in between pitches anymore, so no more. We don't need no more Ken Rosenthal on the sideline. You're out.
AJ, actually, that's a legitimate concern, and mostly when I talk, AJ, you know this, and fans probably can pick up on it too if they're really paying attention. I'll come on between batters. I'll come on foul balls, maybe after a walk. That's the most natural times, or those are the most natural times for me to come on. But in this scenario, when there's 15 seconds between pitches, in the regular season, sure, I can talk over pitches. It's not the end of the world. Postseason, can't do that. Can't miss a pitch. So it's going to be an adjustment I would expect from me. And actually, AJ, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on how it's going to be for you as an analyst, because you won't have time to necessarily see a replay. You won't have time to necessarily set up the next pitch. It's a different way of broadcasting that we're all going to have to get used to.
I'll let you know on Monday after I do my first game, Ken. I'm going to need some time to digest it, so I'll let you know.
You've thought about it, though, right?
I have. I actually have.
Given it thought.
Because when I watch these games and I hear them talk, they have to talk over so many pitches, which has always been kind of the no-no. You don't want to talk over the pitches in case something happens. But if you're trying to explain something in 15 seconds or 12 seconds or whatever it is, it's going to be tough. It's going to be definitely an adjustment.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And I expect, actually, I was talking with someone from Fox about this morning. I expect that all of the broadcasters, local, national, will figure it out and will fall into the proper cadence. But I don't know that it will be easy, and I don't know that it will be necessarily smooth. It's going to be an adjustment for everyone, including play-by-play guys. They have a different job now, too. So it's going to be something, Scott, that I think will be interesting for people who like that stuff to follow all year long.
The balanced schedule. Which of the teams have you heard from when talking to front offices are like, oh, well, this is going to help us because you had said the Rays, they don't have to play in the East, but is it middle tier teams? Are the bottom feeders? Are they like, oh, great, now we got to play this team out of the Central? Is it going to, what organizations are they making moves to like deal with this, or are they just kind of, we'll see what happens?
I don't know that they're making moves, Eric, to deal with it. I don't know that you can be that smart, right? But for each team, the circumstance is different. Now, look at the Cardinals, for example. They play in a weak division, right? In their perfect world, they'd play the Pirates 19 times and the Reds 19 times and go from there. It's a little bit different for them now. Now, they'll still play some weaker teams out of the division in some of those games that are made up. The A's, for instance, in the American League. But for a team like that, I would imagine they'd rather just keep it the way it was and play the weaker teams in their division. For some of the small market teams in stronger divisions, like we mentioned, the Rays, it's a boon. I would expect for the Marlins, who are trying to make their way and scratch and claw in the NL East, it helps as well. They don't have to play the Mets, Phillies, and Braves and get worn out 19 times each. But again, it will depend on team strengths and it will depend on just how they're playing. Remember the schedule, you guys know this. The schedule matters. It definitely matters. But if you're not playing well at the particular time that you're running into a weaker team, you're going to get beat. And we go through this every September when we're talking about, oh, this team has the strongest schedule, this team has the weakest. And yet you'll see things happen that don't necessarily coincide with that logic. So I think we'll just have to see how it all plays out. From a fan's perspective, the most interesting thing, in my opinion, is if you are, for instance, a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, you will see Ohtani play your team this year and every year. And every other year, it will be in your home park. That's pretty cool.
That's a huge win in my mind. That is a huge win. That
Ken
alone.
Rosenthal predicting Ohtani not signing with the Pirates, just FYI.
Yeah, okay. Really going out there.
Yeah, I have predicted that.
That actually was one of my favorites in that article. Pirates
I'm comfortable with that one.
Yeah. 25-year, $100 million offer to Brian Reynolds, $95 million of it deferred. So we'll finish with that. And Ken, let's throw up the promo because AJ was complaining that he wasn't getting enough of his mornings. So 1 to 3 Eastern time beginning tomorrow for the entire season, accommodate to get more of the current player guests on there too. So Ken, just so you know, we all get a little more rest now thanks to AJ's complaints about the show being too early. 1 to 3 next time we'll see, I think, is Friday. So enjoy your opening day.
All right. Thanks, guys.